justice and the American way, although that is apparently not what's happening in the Philippines. This upload is going to be about 10 minutes long, and then I have something that I want to do. But I took a walk on the beach yesterday. Now, for years, many years, 5, 6 years, I have been telling you that behind the Bellevue Hotel in Bohol, the Modala Hotel in Bohol, the Henan Beach Resort in Alona Beach. Those three big resorts, I have done uploads and talked about what they have been doing to their environment, aka their beaches. Specifically, how much sand has been placed behind those three businesses or hotels. So the amount of sand behind any one of them is, these are the numbers. These are the numbers. And then I'll go over the numbers momentarily. I'll put this up on the board. So the amount of sand for one establishment, and there are three, is 500 feet across by 150 feet from the hotel to the end of what is called reclamation. They reclaimed the tidal watermark. So in other words, the watermark may have been here, and then they added sand to make the watermark, high watermark, 100 feet further out towards the ocean. Now, they didn't do that. We do it in America because that was what I did for a living. I worked in the marine construction industry. But my dad was a tugboat captain for Weeks Construction. And we worked on the tugboats, my dad and I, to put the pipelines in, to put a suction dredge out a half a mile from shore, and it would suck up millions and millions of cubic yards of sand, 100 million yards. We did, when I worked on the boat for a few weeks in the summer sometimes, there would be a beach that would be 10 miles long, and they were going to reclaim the ocean. They're taking the sand out of the ocean and pumping it up onto Jones's Beach. And the height of the sand would be 10 feet higher, and it would be 1,000 feet from the boardwalk to the ocean. So hundreds of millions of yards of sand were taken out of an ocean bottom from a half a mile from shore and then pumped back onto the beach. Well, they do that differently here in the Philippines. They don't have dredging equipment. What they have is they have a rock quarry. And the quarry, I can see it from my window if I look out the window on a clear day, although that never happens anymore. But the rock quarry is huge. You can see it when you go by in the ship. It's huge. It's the whole side of a mountain. And it's the whole side of a coral cropping that's billions and billions of years old. They take the rock and they crush it up into fine sand, or coral sand, beach sand, if you will. Then they put it in large trucks and they truck it to the places that need sand for fill, for beaches, or if they need to make concrete, they make concrete out of it. What they did behind the Bellevue, the Modala Hotel, and the Henan is they ordered, they ordered 20,000 yards of sand for each, approximately 16,666 cubic yards to do one reclamation of 500 by 150 by 6 feet deep. So they took a total of 1.5 million yards, 1.5 million yards of sand from the quarry, and they filled it in behind these 3 hotels. Now, the Henin was done first back in 2015, 14, like that. And what they did is they raised the level of the beach 7.5 feet high. And then they brought the beach out 200 feet from the back edge of the hotel pool area. Well, all that sand, when I went there last year, and the year before, and the year before that, I told you in many videos that I made, the sand from storms, from rainwater, from natural wind, and just natural erosion from the waves, the sand that was up high like this, and they just stopped putting the trucks, and then the sand was on a 45-degree angle like that for the first year when they filled it in. But then that smooths out. Sand has something called, when you have cement, you have something called a slope, S-L-O-P-E. And you might have a 6 by 12 inch slump or slope. Some people call it a slope, some people call it a slump. So you have 6 inches of concrete, has a 12-inch base. That's your slump. Now that's a good slump. It's not a wet mix of concrete. But then if the concrete is softer, you might have a 4-inch by 12-inch pancake at the bottom. And the way that's done is they take a certain amount of concrete, they fill up a bucket, they turn the bucket upside down, they remove the bucket, and then they look at the height of the slump and the width at the bottom of the slump. Now, sand has almost no slump because there's nothing binding it like concrete or Portland cement. So if you took a bucket of sand, it might have a 3.5 or 3-inch slump if it's wet sand. Okay, so but when you look at your yard or the side of a mountain, and the mountain has a torrential downfall, very heavy rainfall, you're going to see where the water etched out many cubic feet, maybe many cubic yards, maybe the whole side of the mountain is washed away with the rain and the floods. Well, that's happens everywhere. Now, on every beach, everywhere in the world, when we have a heavy torrential downpour, you're going to see what they call ravines. That's how rivers are formed originally. The rain washes a path, and then each time it rains, more and more of the river bottom is worn out or washed away. Well, on the beaches, and that could be rock, that could be river rock, it could be bluestone, it could be limestone. Either way, the water is going to etch it out. But when you have just pure sand, you take a hose and you can hose a 5-gallon bucket of sand away with the hose in a few minutes, 4, 5, 6 minutes, whatever. So when it rains here, you're going to see a trough in the sand coming from the area of the hotel where the pool and the recreation area is, because there's no drainage there. The drainage is a pitched angle to the beach, and then the water goes to the beach, and then it will cause a ravine. It could be a foot deep but 5 feet wide, could be 6 inches deep and a foot wide, depends on the size of the parking lot or recreation area. But it could also be 3 feet deep and 3 feet wide. And I've seen that happen in Alona Beach years ago. So the rain washes the sand into the ocean. The waves lapping up on the shore wash the sand into the ocean. What happened behind the Henan is the sand washed away and covered up the natural reef behind Alona Beach. And it killed the reef. It smothered the reef. It would be like taking a foot of sand and putting it on your Kentucky bluegrass. It would smother the grass, and that would be the end of the grass. Well, the reef is even more sensitive to anything that covers it: oil from the boats, suntan lotion, and or beach erosion. So now the Modala, first the Bellevue was here for many years, more than 10 years, but now the Modala is 5 years old. They did the same thing. So once, where I used to go swimming years ago in 2014 and 15 and 16, and showed videos on my Hoodwink page of there being a reef behind the Bellevue and where Modala is now, that was about 12 feet deep at low tide. Even at low tide, there was still 12 feet of water on the coral reef. So that's 4 meters of water at low tide on the reef. Well, yesterday we had an exceptionally low full moon tide. And you can now, at low tide, you can now walk out to where there used to be 12 feet or 4 meters of water. All the beach has washed and covered up millions and millions and millions of years of coral growth that was 12 feet, 13 feet, 14 feet at low tide of coral outcroppings. Now the sand has covered those outcroppings up. There's no more water at low tide. You can walk out to where the reef used to be. Now the problem, the reef is dead. The reef is dead. So you might see, you could see it in the water. We're walking in the water. You could see like 6 pieces of elkhorn coral, where used to be in 2014 the elkhorn coral was 5 feet high, and it was this thick at the bottom. Now there's no more elkhorn coral at all. Well, I saw one outcropping, 2 small sections with 6 fingers and 10 fingers. And the 10-fingered one, somebody had dropped an anchor there, which is illegal because it's in a sanctuary zone. Someone dropped an anchor and knocked down one of the elkhorn coral outcroppings. That's dead. That's just laying over on its side. It'll never grow back. And the other one has 5 fingers left. The reef will never come back. Now, in Florida, this is what I did my whole life. I worked on the water in what is called the coral zone. Coral, C-O-R-A-L. Anything where light hits the bottom of the ocean is the coral zone, where there is a lot of growth of flotsam and jetsam, seaweed, sea grass, and things of that nature. Anything, that's the coral zone. Well, where this coral zone is in Florida, in order to fill in any sand anywhere near it, you'd have to go through 6 agencies. You'd have to go through the Environmental Protection Agency, the Coast Guard, the Army Corps of Engineers, the Bureau of Land Management, and Special Species Division. To even dig a hole, you'd have to go through those 6 agencies. For me, I had to do that. From when I put in pilings or a bulkhead or a deck or a dock. And then the EPA had to do an environmental impact study. Environmental impact study. These are the agencies that I would have to go through. That would cost me $1,700 for the environmental impact studies, the Coast Guard, the Army Corps of Engineers, Special Species Division, and the permit was another $1,500. So it would cost me $3,000 to put in one piling anywhere near what is called the coral zone. And they would send people out or review what information they had on that area, and they would say, yes, you can do it, or no, you can't. For the fact that the sand, the 1.5 million cubic feet, or 1 million cubic feet behind the Bellevue and the Modala, about 1 million cubic feet, they never had any forethought that the sand was going to eventually just wash down and cover the reef, which is only 350 feet away. So when you bring 1 million cubic feet onto a beach area and rain, storms, and especially typhoons coming out of a certain direction are going to wash that sand off the beach area and to where there was 12 feet of water. In other words, it's the water seeks its own level, and the sand being washed down wants to fill up to seek its own level. That's why, in and of itself, that proves the earth is flat. It seeks its own level, and the sand would want to do the same thing. So if you just rained on the sand and there was a small amount, it would seek its own level. That is what they call sea level. Therefore, the earth is flat. But moving on, no one ever had any forethought to the environmental impact of putting 1 million cubic feet of sand 350 feet from where it was 12 feet deep. Now at low tide, you can walk out onto the reef where the reef was 12, 13, 14, 15 feet at low tide. Now you can just walk out there, look down, and you're walking in between what was once brain coral 12 feet high, elkhorn coral gone. That grows at a deeper water level. The coral is gone. There's a few pieces of what looks like coral, and that's fast-growing stuff like a fan coral that will grow in one season. There's no more brain coral. No more. It's all gone. There's no more elkhorn coral. There was a few pieces about a foot tall. 5 pieces on the whole reef where I walked yesterday for half an hour. So somebody dropped the ball on this environmental impact study. Or they don't have an environmental impact study capability because I don't know, maybe a white sand beach is more important than a multi-million-year-old reef. I don't know how they think here. All I know is that if in Florida, if you wanted to add sand like this to a beach that was by a coral reef, they would just say, no, you can't do that. Just not allowed. Can't do it. But here, they have the ability to do that, and I don't think anybody broke any laws because it wasn't something that was done at night. It was done in the light of day. Millions of cubic feet of sand were brought in during the day. There's no law was broken, but nobody did a proper environmental study, or no one, I don't know. All I know is that the reef behind where I moved here for this beautiful reef, behind the Bellevue, behind the Modala, that used to be 12 feet deep at low tide, now it's 2 feet deep because the sand filled it in. And wherever you look, it's just white sand. So now, instead of seeing coral, where there were coral outcroppings 12 feet high, now you just see sand, and you could walk out and look down at a reef that no longer exists. Welcome, they say, when you talk about stuff like this, they say, welcome to the Philippines, baby. Because that's, and I have been saying this for years as a licensed excavation contractor, myself being a licensed excavation contractor for 30 years. I have said this would happen. I have said they brought the sand in. I have said they raised the beach level 6 feet. I have said it's washing out. I have said it will destroy the reefs. And now, my first walk on the beach in quite a while, at low tide, it did exactly what I said. So, was it prescience? No, it wasn't prescience. It was foreknowledge of environmental impact studies. For 30 years, I worked with these people. The people in the Philippines, send this video to your environmental protection agencies, send it to your EPA, send it to your Coast Guard with my blessings. And if they need my assistance and knowledge base of what to and what not to do when working in the environment, here it is in a nutshell. Have your environmental protection agencies contact the environmental protection agencies of the Florida Keys, the United States Coast Guard EPA division in the Florida Keys, and the Environmental Protection Agency in the state of Florida. That's my advice to the environmental protection agencies in the Philippines, because those three agencies work in coral zones where there are coral reefs in a reef habitat environment, and they have already done environmental impact studies for coral reefs and the different types of coral and how much impact would be allowed before it was harmful to the reef. Now, 10 feet of sand on top of a live coral reef, well, total devastation. And that's what happened. But hopefully, someone from the EPA, Coast Guard in the Philippines will look at this video and get in touch with me if they want, and I will give them advice on who to call in Florida. They don't have to take my advice. I'll just give them the three different agencies to contact in the state of Florida for Environmental Protection Agency coral studies. Because what happened here it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. I just walked in 2 feet of water where there was once 12, 13 feet of water at low tide, and all the beautiful coral heads, all the giant brain corals that were 7 or 8 feet in diameter, 10 feet, what they call table coral. There was table coral back behind the Bellevue that was 10, 12 feet in diameter. Yesterday, I saw one piece of table coral about 4 feet in diameter. You're talking about 20 years of growth to grow something 12 feet in diameter. And yesterday, I saw something that was about 2 years old. And that's what we got. Welcome to the Philippines, baby. Let's see, we have, it's Holly. Hello, Holly. Flat Earth Society. The Earth is flat, baby. You know that. And Flying Circus. So I'm going to say goodbye because I wanted this video to be a maximum of 15 minutes. But if you want to recommend me, Michael Thomas Fazio, to talk to the Coast Guard and give them information of how to get the impact studies from the state of Florida. I worked with those people for 30 years. Well, from 1995 to 2013 in the Florida Keys, but I also, for 20 years in New York City, I was a marine construction licensed contractor with a barge and a crane. So tell them to contact me, and I will give them 3 websites that they can try to contact the people that do the studies, because this reef, I don't know how long it took. They said this reef took 20,000 years to grow, and it took 2 hotels and 7 years to destroy. 20,000 years. This reef is between 20 and 30,000 years old, is what I read. And it took 7 years and 2 hotels and 1 million cubic feet of sand to wipe out 20,000 years of live coral growth. And that's why we say, baby, prepare to be underwhelmed. Welcome to the Philippines, baby. And of course, Amping Permi, and Happy New Year's 2024. And of course, Amping Permi means take care always. Bye-bye for now.